My name is Daverly Enciso. I am a student at CSUDH, and today I will be conducting an interview with Professor Dora Costa. Before I get started, I want to share some background info on Professor Costa. Dora Costa is Professor of Economics at UCLA, where she teaches economic history. She is also a research associate in the National Bureau of Economic Researches, programs on the development of the American economy and on aging, and the co-director of the NBER Working Group Cohort Studies. Costa's research focuses primarily on issues in labor economics, demography, and health as interpreted over the long span of American economic history. I would also like to begin by thanking Professor Costa for giving us some of her time. I would like to begin the interview by asking Professor Costa to define economics. Professor, can you define economics for me? Economics is defined as a social science concerned with making optimal choices under conditions of scarcity. Professor, you mentioned the word scarcity. Would you mind elaborating on that? No, not at all. Scarcity arises when the wants and the needs of society outweigh the availability of resources. An example would be, let's say that because of poor weather, corn crops did not grow, resulting in a scarcity of food for people and animals and ethyl for fuel. Professor Costa, would you happen to be able to give us a current event on scarcity? Yes, of course. I was recently reading a blog of the University of Arizona published, and according to their data, it's estimated that 1.8 billion people will experience absolute water scarcity, meaning there will be little to no water resources to live off by 2020 in countries like Jordan. Wow, Professor, this is really interesting. Would you propose a possible solution? A possible solution would be for them to economize, which means due to the scarcity of resources, societies need to economize them, basically making sure there is minimal to no waste of using them. Something else I would like to mention is that Jordan would need to use their water efficiently. And when I mean that, I mean for them to use the least but get the most output. I would like to provide a personal example of efficiency by sharing that before I would deliver food by foot and I could only take one order at a time. But when the restaurant got a vehicle, I was able to travel further and waste less time while taking out the most orders. This is really something to pay attention to, Professor. I also wanted to ask another question. Why do you think that while Jordan is having a water scarcity, Japan, on the other hand, is improving their economy significantly? There are many things that have helped Japan reach a better economy, and which I would like to mention. Although Japan has had a decline in population, this has led them to have an economic growth. The reasons they have had an economic growth is because of human capital. This means they are investing more on education, which is an infrastructure that allows for the population to learn. An example of this would be to learn a new job training. This leads to specialization. Because let's say that a person that learns something in technology specializes only in that. They are obviously going to get better at it and specialize at it. Another reason is because of international trade. Because Japan has specific resources that we cannot produce here in the US and in some other countries. I think that is all the time we have for today, Professor. Thank you so much for this interview. This is Daverly Enciso with Professor Dora Costa.